Jim Walsh keeps it live and local weekday mornings on Super Talk 1270.
Yeah, I'm sending that out to my boss, Uncle Lair. He's in Sturgis this week. He's supposed to get back toward the end of the week, and I'm hoping and praying that he's in no condition to listen to the show right now, because we're going to do some fun stuff, you know, when the cat's away, yada, yada, yada. Cool. There I go again. Yeah. Super Talk 1270. I'm Jim Walsh. You may have heard me doing my little show on Cool 98.7, our sister station right down the hall here. And every once in a while, they cut me loose and let me come in and do a little fill-in on the AM side. And I get to talk about all the cool and edgy stuff that they won't let me talk about on Cool, which is fine. You know, it's a music station. It's about the classic hits, and it's about the Beatles and the Stones. And I can dig that. I'm cool. But let's have a little bit of fun here this morning. Get away from the heavy stuff for just a little while. We're going to declare this a Trump-free zone for the next hour or so and talk about a subject very near and dear to my heart, coffee. Did you know that in the next couple of months, Bismarck is getting a new coffee franchise? Well, it's new for Bismarck. They've already got them around the country. It's a nationwide franchise. They've got them in Fargo already. I understand they have one in Grand Forks. Caribou Coffee. Now, I've never heard of Caribou Coffee. I'm familiar with a lot of the coffee franchises because I am a serious, heavy-duty coffee drinker. I'm a caffeine buff. And, you know, caffeine may be the low end of the speed spectrum, but there are a lot of certified caffeine freaks running around loose out there, and I happen to be one of them. Although, believe it or not, I have actually cut back as much caffeine as I take in. I used to take in a whole lot more. Because remember, I'm an early morning DJ, and getting up at 4:30 in the morning is hard enough when you're not overly caffeinated. Anyway, so we're getting this place called Caribou Coffee, and I mentioned this. Well, let me give you the question here. The question is, who makes the best coffee in Bismarck? Who do you think's got the best coffee, and which coffee franchise would you like to see come to Bismarck? Because personally, I'd love to see us get a Tim Hortons here in Bismarck. I would love that. I've never had it. I've just heard so many good things about it. They say their coffee is like heroin. It's positively addictive. Not literally, of course, but it's just real good coffee. And they have donuts, too. All right, the number here is 663-1270. Now, you tell me what you think about this. I mentioned this because I was at my class last night. I go to school part-time. I go to graduate school at the University of Mary. And last night at our Monday evening class, somebody, I'm taking business courses for my master's degree in business. And the subject came up last night about new businesses that are coming to Bismarck and the surrounding area. We've talked about that before. And one of the new businesses is we're getting several of these Caribou Coffee outlets. A couple of which apparently are going to go right across the street from a couple of our local Starbucks. They're going to give Starbucks, you know, it's like the thing with, what are the two big home improvement stores, Lowe's and the other one. And, you know, any town where one gets built, the other comes in right away and builds next door or across the street. It's like they always like to go head to head with each other. And apparently that's what's happening with this Caribou Coffee. Is that they see Starbucks in town, and of course Starbucks is pretty much everywhere, but they see a Starbucks in a certain town, and they like to come in and like to build their place right across from Starbucks. It's like, yeah, buddy, we're going head to head, right toe to toe, so to speak, with you guys. So anyway, this subject came up last night, and one of the young ladies in our class got very excited. Apparently, she commutes to Fargo on a regular basis, and she loves Caribou Coffee. She's nuts about it. So she's saying it's really a good thing that they're coming to Bismarck. So it gives me an opportunity to talk just for a few minutes about one of my all-time favorite subjects, my favorite drug, which happens to be caffeine. Caffeine is a drug. It's a stimulant. It keeps you going. It's safe, supposedly. It's legal in moderation, just like just about everything, but what is your favorite coffee? Where do you like to go for coffee in this town? You know, because what I'm finding out, here's the number, 663-1270. Something else I've noticed, And none of this is a commercial for or against any of the local coffee places or any of the coffee brands. It's just a fact that a lot of people go to Starbucks, I do, because it's convenient. Not necessarily because their coffee is the best on the planet. Their coffee's okay. I can't complain about their coffee. It doesn't suck, okay? We'll put it that way. You know, it's like that certain restaurant that everybody has in their hometown, and it's not great, but everybody just kind of goes there because it's convenient, and they say, well, the food doesn't suck. Well, that's Starbucks. You know, it's there, it's convenient. No matter where you are in Bismarck, there's always one a block or two away, and you know the coffee doesn't suck. Although personally, you know the key to Starbucks, right? They actually burn the beans a little bit. That unique taste comes from deliberately overcooking the beans, and some people like that, I guess. But it does give it a very distinct taste. And, of course, they have this whole lifestyle thing that they built around their brand, which is fine. And there are people who are nuts about Starbucks. They think it's just the greatest thing in the world. I'm okay with Starbucks, but there are other brands I like as well. And if this Caribou Coffee comes to town, as they probably will, I'll probably check that out and probably hang out there for a while. And we'll see how it plays out. So, what are your coffee preferences? Where do you like to go for the old cup of joe? Who would you like to see? I still say we got to get a Tim Hortons in this town. Number here, 663-1270. Love to hear from you. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. Be right back.
Right now, 70.
You're never more than a few minutes from a weather update here on Super Talk 1270.
Talking coffee here.
And here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. Jilly loves you more than you will know.
Now, there's a reason I'm playing this, which I'll get to in a moment, but I want to point out this is probably the worst record Frank Sinatra ever cut. And Frank was, well, you know, he was Sinatra. He was the greatest. But this version of Mrs. Robinson, no. Anyway, thank you, Frank. Thank you. Let me be frank with you here. It's Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. We're talking, you know, we should play. He did a coffee song, didn't he? We're talking coffee. We're asking you about your favorite brand of coffee, where you like to go for your drive-in coffee, because we're getting a new place called Caribou Coffee. And also, we're getting a new local place called, what's it called? The Classic Rock Coffee. It's going to be on the Strip, right down the street here from the radio station on the east end of the Strip right there, you know, as you turn off of the interstate. Place called, is it the Classic Rock Cafe? Is that what they're calling it? Anyway, so we've got a lot of these local coffee places, and we got Starbucks, of course, and they're just about everywhere. You know, you can't throw a rock in this town without hitting a Starbucks. And Starbucks is okay. They don't suck. You know, they're not the worst coffee in the world by any means. I don't know that they're the best. I mean, they've done a great job. They're brilliant with their marketing, obviously. But the question is, where do you like to go for your coffee? And who should come to town? Which coffee franchise would you like to see come to town? Because apparently there's a lot of folks who are really excited about this Caribou Coffee thing. Number is 663-1270, 663-1270 if you're calling from out of the immediate area, because we are streaming at supertalk1270.com. 701-663-1270. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. If you're just a coffee drinker, because, you know, we drink an awful lot of coffee in North Dakota as opposed to Brazil, where I suppose they do drink coffee as well. Anyway, another reason I wanted to mention, talk about the whole coffee thing, is the fact that we had a passing of note last week. It was over the weekend, actually. A gentleman named Vincent Marotta passed away Saturday. Vincent Marotta, he was 90-some years old. And what's notable about Mr. Marotta was he was one of the people behind Mr. Coffee with Joe DiMaggio. You remember the commercials? That's why I played the Sinatra thing. And so that got me, that's one of the other things that got me to thinking about this whole coffee topic, because like I say, last night I was with a group of people. Somebody mentioned that Caribou Coffee is coming to Bismarck, and this one person got really, really giddy about that. Like she'd already been drinking about a gallon of this stuff. No, but she said she loves Caribou Coffee. It's great. And they're coming to town, and apparently they're going to set up shop in a couple of locations right across, toe-to-toe, if you will, with Starbucks. And a lot of people are thinking that this new company is going to give Starbucks a real serious run for their money. Well, maybe. Maybe they will. I don't know. But it's always nice to have more places to go to get your coffee. It's always, you can't have enough coffee options, in my opinion. And I think this is a good thing. Somebody hopefully will not tell them that the oil business is a little off in this town. But I'm glad they're coming anyway. And that raises the question, what do you like in your coffee? I mean, where do you like to go for your coffee? And do you agree with me that we really need to get a Tim Hortons in this town? Have you ever been to Tim Hortons? It's a Canadian chain, but they do have a few stateside. Somebody told me, I don't know if it's true. Is it true they have a Tim Hortons in Grand Forks or near Grand Forks? Is that true? I know there's a couple in Minnesota. They have them in upstate New York. I would think Tim Hortons would go over really big here because, I've always thought in North Dakota, there's this strong Canadian influence here. And a lot of people here are familiar with Tim Hortons because they've been up to Manitoba and they're big in Winnipeg and all over Canada. Tim Horton, by the way, if you don't know, was a hockey player. He played, I think, he played for a couple of teams. I think played primarily for the Buffalo Sabres, and he passed away back in the late 70s. But before he died, he launched this business, this chain of coffee shops, Tim Hortons Coffee, like coffee and donuts, basically. It's like Dunkin' Donuts or one of the others, Krispy Kreme. But supposedly, Tim Hortons Coffee is, people say it's positively addictive. In fact, there was an urban legend going around a few years ago, and I actually looked this up on Snopes.com, which is the website you go to learn more about these urban legends, whether they're true or not. There was actually an urban legend going around that Tim Hortons coffee contains heroin. I'm serious. I have my hand over my heart as I tell you this. I am not making this up. I am not making a joke. There was an urban legend. There was a rumor going around Canada, the upper Midwest, where they have these franchises here in the States, that Tim Hortons people, they actually put small doses of heroin in the coffee to make it more addictive. That's how good the coffee is. Oh, by the way, it's not true, but apparently the coffee is really good. So who would you like to see come to town? Which coffee dealership? Are you one of these people? Apparently there's people who are nuts about this Caribou Coffee, and they are coming to town sometime in the next couple of months, along with Dick's Sporting Goods and a whole bunch of other new business enterprises. New to Bismarck, anyway. So where do you like to go for your coffee? And would you like to see more of these coffee dealerships, these coffee franchises coming to town? I'd love it. I think it's great. Competition's a great thing. Let them build a couple of hundred of these places around Bismarck. You throw a rock, you hit a coffee place. Not that I encourage that, mind you. But, I mean, Starbucks is there, and Starbucks is brilliant with their marketing. But, Starbucks, the coffee is really just kind of, it's okay. A lot of folks, I think, go to Starbucks. I know I do, for the reason that it's convenient. It's there. And the coffee's okay. It's not bad. It doesn't suck. But who would you like to see? Who would you like to see come to town? Personally, I think the people who make 8 o'clock coffee ought to make it available for drive-through. That's good stuff. Really good stuff. That's probably the best, in my opinion. 8 o'clock coffee is the best off-the-shelf coffee brand you can get. That and, Folgers is okay for the among the big mass appeal brands. But 8 o'clock is really good. It's a little more expensive. If you want to go cheaper, a Folgers is probably what I would go with. I can't drink Maxwell House because it, let's just say it goes through me like... It goes through me like grease through a goose. If you know what I mean, and I think you do. But anyway, talking about coffee. And they drink an awful lot. Where is that Sinatra song? Somebody get that Sinatra song and get it queued up. Get it, the coffee song. Let me see if I can find it here. This is great. If you've never heard this, the coffee song, There it is. Yeah, let's hear that coffee song, all about drinking coffee in Brazil. Here we go. This is Frank Sinatra, one of his classics, the coffee song.
Way down among Brazilians,
Yeah.
coffee beans grow by the billions.
Woo.
So they've got to find those extra cups to fill. They've got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil.
Got my iced coffee here. Enjoying that.
You can't get cherry soda, 'cause
Yeah.
they've got to fill that quota.
Woo.
And the way things are, I'll bet they never will.
Yeah, buzzing like a $40
They've
Philco.
got a zillion tons of coffee in Brazil. No tea
No tea,
or tomato juice, you'll see.
no potato juice.
'Cause the planters down in Santa's all say
No,
no,
no, no.
The politician's daughter was accused of drinking water and was fined a great big $50 bill.
Tell them why, Francis.
They've got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil.
And you tell them what they can do with that decaf, buddy. Yeah. How about some espresso? Get you climbing the walls before this program's over. Because I'm a fiend for that little bean, baby. Well, anyway, we got on this because of the Caribou Coffee thing. Caribou Coffee is coming to Bismarck, and the question is, which kind of coffee? What kind of coffee do you like? What kind of coffee do you prefer? Listen to me, I sound like I've just had a Jeroboam of this stuff. But sometimes I get naturally wound up, too. You know, a natural high is, believe it or not, I have tried it once or twice in my life. But the question is, where do you like to go for your drive-in coffee? And who would you like to see come to Bismarck? Which coffee franchise? Because I know you Tim Horton fans are out there. I know you're out there. You're just afraid to come out. You're afraid, it's Canadian. I don't like people say, American coffee, no Canadian coffee. Well, let's not be silly about this. Let's not be Trumpish about the foreign coffee. Don't be Trumpish. Yeah, I did say this was a Trump-free hour, and I'm going to stick to that. But, yeah, let's not get silly about this. Let's not say things like, well, what do we need coffee from Canada for? Oh, it's good coffee. Everybody says the coffee's like heroin, this Tim Hortons coffee. I kid you not. Anyway, that's what we've been talking about. Coming up, I got a couple of stories here. There's a local story about toilets. Maybe coffee and toilet. I'm not sure how they go together. Well, maybe they do, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. In the meantime, can we hear a little more Frank? Let's take it out with Frank here. Frank? Somebody nudge Frank, please. There he is. Okay.
You'll see.
And we'll continue in a couple of moments here. Number 663-1270, Supertalk 1270, and supertalk1270.com. Be right back.
The politician's daughter was accused of drinking water and was fined a great big $50 bill. They've got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil.
Right now, 70.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Supertalk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
Talking about that swing fever, get you buzzing like a $40 Philco. Yeah, who's got the best drive-through coffee? You tell me. Number here is 663-1270. It's Supertalk 1270. Megan, good morning. Thanks for calling.
Hi.
Hi, you wanted to talk about coffee, right?
Yes.
Do tell.
I love Tim Hortons just like you do.
Have you been to Canada?
Yes. I was just up there a few weeks ago, and they have one on every corner.
Yeah, the two things I love about Canada right now, there's a lot of things I like about Canada. The two things I really love are Cuban cigars and Tim Hortons, and hopefully both of them will be coming to America very soon.
Let's hope.
So what is it you think about Tim Hortons? Now, compare it with Starbucks, for example.
I never drink Starbucks.
You never? Now, is that people don't drink Starbucks for different reasons, I know. Is it you just don't like the taste or what?
No, and I think it's really expensive.
It is.
Yeah, Caribou and Tim Hortons are more reasonable, I think.
Yeah. Caribou, I'm hearing very good things about Caribou, and they are coming to town.
Yes.
Okay, I guess we'll have to do a taste test when they get here and compare notes later.
Well, let's hope Tim Hortons shows up pretty soon.
I'm with you, Megan. Thanks for the call.
All right, have a great day.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Thank you very much. There you go. Number here is 663-1270. Let's get a little bit of that swing fever thing. Can we get that swing fever music on? talking about coffee here. Yeah. This is a song called Swing Fever, all about the joys of getting a good caffeine buzz on. Now, you call me and tell me your favorite, Joe.
You know, I'm on the verge of something big. I got coffee in my cup, big strings on my rig. The baby's so crazy, what does she know? Pour me up another big double cappuccino. Back at the shack, things are getting kind of muddy. What with job and jam, John with my buddy. The baby's so lazy, I'm starting to believe it. I got a bad case of swing fever. Swing fever, man, I got it. Swing fever. Like a rocket in a pocket. Had a double macchiato and a big pot of tea, and I'm sitting here buzzing like a cheap TV.
Now that's Bill Kirshen and the Too Much Fun Band. Bill Kirshen used to play guitar for, remember Commander Cody? Did the version of Hot Rod Lincoln with the real fast guitar thingy. Oh, that was Bill Kirshen playing the guitar. Anyway, number here, we're talking coffee at 663-1270. What's your favorite brand? What's your favorite drive-through? And who would you like to see come to town? 663-1270. On a slightly different topic, and I'll leave it to you to decide whether there's a connection here between this and the other. Actually, two stories, and they are definitely connected because they both deal with the use of toilet seats. Now, we're not going to get gross or anything, okay? But first of all, we have this story from Canada, interestingly enough, been talking about Canada. They've done some study on the use of public toilet seats. You know, the thing where you go in. Are you the kind of person who puts paper on the seats when you go in because you're afraid of getting cooties or whatever? I know a lot of people are. I used to be like that. I don't do it anymore because I read articles like this one that kind of debunk. Basically, this debunks the whole notion that you're going to, get some kind of plague if you sit on a public toilet seat. You cover the seat with the paper. That's one popular. Maybe you hover. Maybe you kind of squat a bit. Well, unless you actually, I can't believe they said that. This is an actual quote from the article. Are you ready? Okay, I'm warning you up front. Gross out alert here. It says, unless you actually lick the toilet seat, there's really no likelihood of you catching any kind of infection. Really. And don't worry about flushing with your foot or any of that business. Yes, it is true that toilet seats are crawling with bacteria. But for the most part, coming into direct skin contact poses a minimal risk. I mean, the human body is one of the dirtiest things in nature. Your body is already awash with all kinds of gross stuff, that most of which your body manages to fight off with its own microbes and antibodies, whatever. Or unless you have a big boil on your butt, or I know, unless you have a big giant gash on your gluteus maximus that can allow the bacteria to get into your bloodstream, there's really there's no risk at all. There is a slight risk, apparently, after getting up from the seat, because studies have shown that flushing a loaded toilet sends water droplets airborne, with bacteria hitching a ride as far as 2 meters. So don't worry about sitting on the seat, but when you get up to flush it, run. Okay. Do you put paper on the seats? You tell me, 663-1270. And related to that story, or maybe we should present this as a counterpoint to the previous story, from right here in Bismarck, police investigate flaming portable toilets. Yeah. What is it with that guy? Police respond. This is from the police blotter for today. Police responded to Lions Park, East Boulevard Avenue, early this morning, for a report of 2 flaming portable toilets. Police said firefighters were thankfully able to quickly extinguish the flames. Flames were reported by an anonymous caller at 1:22 a.m., and investigators found no preliminary signs of arson. How do you tell? The 2 toilets were mostly, I don't know, maybe they spontaneously combusted. Is that possible? Chemically? You know what? I don't want to know. I don't want to know if it is. The investigation is ongoing. And in the meantime, police have nothing to go on.
What is your major malfunction, numbnut?
It's called a joke, Sergeant. Okay, yeah. But see, police have nothing to go. Forget it. Anyway, so flaming toilet seats. Unless your toilet seat is in imminent danger of catching fire, basically what they're saying is you don't have to worry about putting the paper, unless it's gross. I mean, if you have to clean it off or something, find one that's cleaner or clean it off with a good paper towel and wash your hands real good, you should be fine. That's what we're saying, okay? There are plenty of things in this life that you can worry about that are going to hurt you. Public toilet seats are not among them. Unless, like I say, they're really, really grungy and gross. All right. There are other areas where you can apply the concern. Number here is 6. What we're talking about here, we started talking about the coffee thing and about the fact that Caribou Coffee is coming to Bismarck, and people are going nuts about this. I ran into a girl last night who was saying, yeah, great, Caribou's going to be here. Apparently, they have them in Fargo. She's been to the one in Fargo. And there's one up in, I think, in Grand Forks, and she says they're great. It's like what people say about Tim Hortons, which is another franchise that should come to town. I'd love to try it, But anyway, Caribou Coffee is coming to Bismarck, and that got me thinking about, your favorite coffee brands. Where do you like to go? And do you agree with me that Starbucks is okay, but a lot of the allure of Starbucks is simply the convenience, the fact that they're there, And that's not meant as a knock on Starbucks. I know there are people who like their coffee, but I think a lot more people are kind of drawn in by the marketing. I mean, they are geniuses at doing the marketing thing. But tell me if you agree with me. Number here is 6. And what does it say about our society? Number here is 663-1270. It's Super Talk 1270, streaming online at supertalk1270.com. Story here, a Hollywood story. There's a new another comic book movie coming out. Like, we really need another one, The new movie about the Fantastic Four. They've already done like 2 or 3 versions of the Fantastic Four, and they were all terrible. The last one I thought was okay. It had, what's that one girl's name? Can't remember her name. She's been in a lot of TV shows, and she was the invisible girl in the movie. Oh, and they had the guy who was the commish. He was the Thing. Remember? What I'm talking about? Anyway, they've got a new version of the Fantastic Four with whole new actors. You got the Thing, you got the Invisible Woman, I guess she is now, Mr. Fantastic, and the Human Torch. Oh, what's interesting here is the Human Torch is African-American. The others are Caucasian, but he's supposed to be her sister. How's that? Maybe he was adopted. I don't know. I mean, no, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly cool. Hey, Johnny Storm, he can be whatever he wants to be. Anyway. Actors from the new Fantastic Four film walked out of an interview with some Atlanta radio personalities when the 2 DJs insisted on asking rude, inappropriate questions. The actors, let's see here, see if I know these guys. No, I don't know them. I looked at the names here. I don't recognize them. Because I know a few people in that market, disc jockeys. There's a guy named Larry Wax who used to work in Atlanta radio, and very, very talented guy. I think he retired. But this is not Larry's show. But in fact, one of the things they brought up was this question about the fact that the Human Torch in this is a black guy, which again is fine. I mean, it's okay. But the thing is, the Human Torch and the Invisible Girl are supposed to be brother and sister. So how does that work? And they posed a question. And one of the actors replied that, they could have been, raised together. It could have been, one could have been adopted by the family and, raised with the other one. Well, that's true. Okay, it's not a big deal. Again, I can think of a lot of things in our society today to get more upset about. Like, when Tim Hortons is coming to Bismarck. But that's neither here nor there. So, actors, Jamie Bell, who plays the Thing, it's clobberin' time, and Kate Mara, who is Sue Storm, and who else? This guy, Jordan, what's his name? He plays the Human Torch. Okay, the guy Flame On. Anyway, they went in for this interview, and when the guy started asking questions about the racial thing, they got uncomfortable. And then the actress, Kate Mara, she said very sarcastically, apparently, "Oh, this was a great interview." And the DJ asked her about her haircut. She changed her hairstyle for the movie. Okay. And he said, "Oh, your hair was beautiful." And she apparently took exception to that. And then what else did he say? He said something about her toes. And I don't know how they got from her hair to her toes, but he mentioned, "I think your hair is fine and your toes are fine." I don't know. But anyway, that's when they got up and left. Apparently, they took great offense. Now my thought on this is, racist and sexist questions. You know, look, you guys, the actors, I mean, look, these guys are disc jockeys. They're supposed to be stupid. It's the part of the job description. And may I point out, you guys are actors. You're in a movie about comic book characters. Do you think you could maybe get over yourselves just a wee little bit? Maybe, hopefully, knock wood. Don't take yourself so seriously, you guys. Come on. Have a little fun with it. You know? Talk about your toes. I don't care. All right. Jim Walsh on Supertalk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. More conversation, your calls coming up.
Right now, 75.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
Jim Walsh here with a history lesson. Let me throw this out there. I'm a history buff, and I love questions like this. Based on what you know about the bombing of Hiroshima, the anniversary is this week. Were we justified in dropping an atom bomb on Japan? Yeah, I know it's a very unusual subject, but it's a subject I'm going to talk about a little here. I'm just fascinated with this kind of thing. Number here is 663-1270. Thursday and Sunday, respectively, mark the 70th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, two Japanese cities. It's been 70 years since the atomic bomb was dropped in an effort to end the war with Japan at the end of World War II. And to this day, there's a lot of controversy about this. If you ever read a book called Hiroshima by John Hersey, I read it in high school. Very, very powerful account of what happened that day. You wonder what an atomic war would be like. It has happened. The nuclear age has had its lessons. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and if you want to know what it would be like, since it did already happen, in effect, you can read about it in Mr. Hersey's book. Very, very powerful account of that day, in particular in Hiroshima. Now, in present-day Japan, a lot of people are continuing to warn humanity about the horrors of nuclear war. Well, that's kind of that's not really the issue here. Everybody thinks, oh, yeah, this is horrible. We should avoid it if we can. But through the years, a lot of people have questioned whether it was justified. I have always been of the opinion, based on my studies of military history, I've always believed that the dropping of the bomb was an unfortunate necessity. I like the quote that came from the one of the guys who was in the plane that dropped the one on Nagasaki. He was the bombardier. I'm trying to remember his name. Kermit somebody. And he was Kermit Behan, okay? Captain Behan said he never regretted dropping the bomb. He regretted having to drop the bomb. I thought that was a very good way of putting it. And I've always felt kind of the same way based on what I known. And, you know, a little full disclosure here, my father was in World War II. He was in the Pacific Theater, and he probably would have been right there in the midst of things if they had to invade the islands, which was one of the big alternatives, was to actually invade the home islands of Japan, which they planned to do in the fall of that year. And God knows how many lives would have been lost, you know. Even the lower figures, we're talking hundreds of thousands of potential losses of life and limb. And yes, it's true. The man who is now my father, he probably would have been right there in the thick of it. So who knows? But setting that aside, I think I can reasonably say that I am of the opinion that it had to be done. There was no indication at the time that Japan was going to surrender on any kind of terms that were acceptable by the American public. And the fact that we had the bomb, as has been pointed out many times, Truman knew that if he had the bomb and he did not use it when he could have, at some point, the information about the bomb was going to come out. And Truman knew good and well that if he didn't use the bomb and he had it and he didn't use it, that at some point somebody would say, well, you know, we had this thing and the president opted not to use it. And we could make the argument that after such and such a date, all of the American lives were lost because of the president's decision. You know, Mr. Truman, you have blood on your hands. And well, it would have been a response, not to be heavy-handed, but, you know, that's the way people were thinking. So there was the political consideration, and there was the consideration of putting, a little bit of fear of God into Russia because they were getting ready to move on part of Japan. There was that as well. But the big thing, I think, is the fact that, yes, it did. It gave the Japanese a way of saving face, which is, if you know anything about the Eastern culture, even Russia, the same way, saving face is very important to those people. That's why certain things played out in the Cuban Missile Crisis the way they did. Kennedy was smart enough to know that he had to allow, he couldn't openly embarrass Khrushchev too much. Because given their culture and the way they think about these things, Khrushchev could have very well done something very rash in order to save face. Well, it was kind of the same feeling with Japan. Well, by dropping the bomb, it allowed Japan to save face by saying that they were, and this is true, they admitted as much after the war. They said, we surrendered not to the Americans, but to the supernatural power of the atom. So I'm sure that was in the mind of a lot of people when they decided to use it. So I've always thought that, again, and we're not trying to be flip about it. We're not trying to make a joke here. But, you know, sometimes you got to do unpleasant things in this life. Sometimes you have to opt for the lesser of evils. It's just a sad fact of life. And I really think that's kind of what happened here with this 70th anniversary. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do what we can to stop it from happening again. Like I say, you know, you got to know your history and read up on that era. And there's a lot of books on the subject. Some are better than others. John Hersey's book is fantastic, I think, because it's as close as you're ever going to get to an actual first-hand account of what happened when they dropped the big one on that city and how things played out. You want to know what it would be like. And bear in mind, the bombs today are much bigger. But the basic principles, the basic physics are the same. So by reading this book, you just figure a bigger version of what they have in the book, and you'll get an idea of what it's like. You know, would the survivors envy the dead? That's the big cliche, and I'm not going to comment on that. But like I say, it's an important history lesson, and we can't afford not to think about it in the future. Story out of California here, Supertalk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Story out of California. We're going to close out today. California, and maybe I might talk about this in the near future, because what they're doing now in California is they've made it possible to buy your lottery tickets directly from the gas pumps at participating stations. You know, the lottery, most lotteries have kind of a cash-only rule, which they set up to keep folks from overspending. But there's about 100 gas stations in California that are trying this experiment where they allow you to, apparently the way it works is when you swipe your card for gas, there's a button you can push that will allow you the option of also including a couple of lottery tickets, which you'll just, add to your bill when you swipe the card. And I'm wondering if we should do that here. That'd be a great thing to talk about. We will talk about that sometime in the very near future. I kind of have a feeling this is going to pop up on occasion as a possible topic here. Because you know how it is. Those wacky Californians, they do something like this. Then all of a sudden, everybody has to do it, California had a drought. We had to have a drought. California went broke and we, well, you know, we're not broke though. I guess we're better off than they are in that sense. For now. All right, your comments welcome. supertalk1270.com. Be sure and like us on Facebook, Supertalk1270, the Facebook page. Till next time, this is Jim Walsh saying, until next time, so long until next time, and thanks for listening. Supertalk 1270.